He's a former Russellville Cyclone, a former Arkansas Tech Wonder Boy, and an LA Rams great. We talked to the legendary Eddie Meador right after this on the Spotlight. And we welcome you into the Spotlight on this beautiful Monday morning. Thanks so much for joining us here today. My name is Drew Brent, and if you're in the market to buy or sell your home, give us a call today, 479-968-5668, or cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com. Hey, stay tuned. At the end of the show, we have a very special tribute to a fallen community hero. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes. But I had the opportunity earlier today to speak with legendary LA Rams defensive back Eddie Meador. Of course, he's a 1955 graduate of Russellville High School, drafted in the 1959 NFL draft, the 7th round by the LA Rams. He holds records for interceptions, fumbles, recoveries, and more to this day in that franchise. We talk about his career and much more. It was a great interview. Check it out. Mr. Meador, thank you for being a part of this show with me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's talk a little bit. I mean, we're going to get into the NFL part of it because I am a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of the National Football League, and I liked the Rams. So this is all really, really good for me. Excuse me. But let's talk about your time in Russellville, and specifically in your biography that I was reading over the weekend. It was interesting to me that coming out of Russellville High School and going into Arkansas Tech, the NFL wasn't necessarily on your radar. You were thinking more along the lines of ROTC. Is that right?
That's correct. I was planning on a military career.
So you're drafted in 1959, if I've got this right, in the 7th round. What the process for being drafted at that point is different than it is now. Can you kind of walk us through how you actually got drafted?
Well, I really don't know. I had no knowledge of the fact that I might be considered for the National Football League. And I was fortunate enough to, I only played 1 year of high school football because we moved to Arkansas from Texas, and I was ineligible for my 11th grade. But anyway, like I say, I only played 1 year of high school football, and Sam Heinzman kind of liked me, I guess, for some reason, and I really wanted to go to Texas A&M, and I also Bear Bryant said I'm too small to play in the Southwest Conference. And so kind of shook that off, and then decided to try Tulsa University. And they said the same thing. So I thought, well, gosh dang, I'm a poor boy from Arkansas, and I don't have the money to go to college on. And Sam Heinzman was the head coach there at that time, and he kind of liked me for some reason. And I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship from Arkansas Tech. And in fact, I guess I'm probably proud to go to Tech rather than go to Texas A&M or to Tulsa or any of those big schools. And but anyway, it was quite fortunate that I was selected to receive a scholarship from Tech, and then everything is all news from now on.
So you play you said 1 year of high school football. You get the attention of Coach Heinzman over at Arkansas Tech. Talk about that transition, because even then, high school football to even NAIA football at that time was still a big leap, wasn't it?
it was a big leap, and but uh, I never have been real scared of the big boys,
Right.
and so uh, I guess I said, "The heck with it! I'm going to give it all I got and go from there."
You talked earlier about the idea that the military was actually your first plan. When you were a kid growing up, was the military what you had always really dreamed of, or was that something that just kind of came a little bit later?
Well, I think it came a little bit later because at, at the time when I entered college, that was a requirement. One was 2 years, the first 2 years in ROTC, the ROTC program,
Okay.
and I uh, enjoyed it very much. And actually, if if the Rams hadn't drafted me or whatever, uh, I probably would have spent 25 or 30 years in the military.
We were talking to Eddie Meador. He is a LA Rams great. He is a superstar in that city. Still holds the record for most interceptions all time for that franchise, if I'm correct, with 46. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
We were talking earlier about the transition between high school to NAIA. Let's talk about that transition from NAIA to the National Football League. First of all, how did you get? How did you find out you were drafted to LA? And then talk about your first days there with the Rams.
Well, well, I was fortunate enough to play in a bowl game after my senior year in college. It was a bowl game that pitted the major college All Americans against the small college All Americans, and I guess I found out the big boys. I guess probably I was about as good uh, on the field as they were, so it really didn't shake me up too much to get drafted by the Rams. And of course, I had to. At that time, I was, like I said, it was going full speed into the ROTC program in the military, and uh, and I had planned on, like I said earlier, I planned on making it a career. And then the draft from the National Football League, the Rams drafted me in the seventh round, and I thought, well, I'm gonna, I've got 6 months or so available to do something besides go into the military at that point. And fortunately, by golly, I was drafted by the Rams in the seventh round. And the first thing I know is that I'm a starting defensive back for the LA Rams in 1959. And I was a cornerback at the time, and some of those plays are the big boys like Jim Brown and Jim Taylor and people like that pretty tough ball players. And but I learned early that to tackle below the knees, and that'll knock the feet out from under them. And that was, fortunately, I guess, final years in the NFL.
Mr. Meadow, you broke up there a little bit, so if I ask a question that you've already covered, my apologies on that. Um, 46 interceptions is still the LA Rams franchise record, probably never going to be touched. Um, I asked this question. You were talking about your stature. You were one of the smaller players. How are you able to pick off great quarterbacks of that era 46 different times? Was it an awareness? Was it something that you worked extra hard on? Kind of walk me through that process.
Well, it's I guess I can walk you through it a little bit. It's when I was switched to the free safety position, I didn't always have a player, opponent player involved, so I watched the quarterback a lot, and it's yeah, I guess I was lucky, and but that particular position, you have a cornerback covering a receiver or whatever, and I can help as a free safety. I can help cover the the players that I think is going to be receiving the ball, and consequently, I was fortunate enough to watch the films of the offensive backs and wide receivers, and pay a lot of attention to that. And there's some keys that you see a player doing, and quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers, and sometimes the ball player and go from there with the ball going the opposite direction.
You in the first few years of playing with LA, the biography says here that there's a rough patch for the Rams, but then Coach Allen shows up, and there's a quote here. Coach Allen made us believe that we could win. He was 150% coach. He was a super coach. Talk to me a little bit about George Allen.
George Allen was at that point I had played under 3 different coaches, Sid Gilman and a couple more, and I was, like you say, the Rams went through a period of not winning a lot of football games, and then when George Allen came there, like I said before, he's a man that is 150% football, and a position that any position that he wants to be as a player and as a coach. And he instilled in us ball players that we hadn't won too many games prior to this, and he has instilled into us that we're as good, if not better, than any of the ball players that we're playing against. And I guess I can take that and take it and run with it as good as anything else.
Well, you were pretty good about taking the ball away and running with the ball. A 6-time Pro Bowler, as this biography mentions as well. I mean, are there moments in your NFL career that stand out to you as being moments that, you know what, I'll never forget? These were the defining moments of my career.
I think just the fact of playing in the National Football League probably is the moment to me in these ball games. It's just I'm fortunate to be there, and I wanted to give it all my best to stay in that same position and to help the Rams win some ball games.
We are talking to Eddie Meador. He is a former Russellville Cyclone. He is a former Wonder Boy, and he's an LA Rams great. I would like to ask you now a little bit about the differences in the game then versus the game now. Obviously, the rule changes have been put in place to try to keep player safety as the paramount feature for these new rule changes. What do you see as the biggest difference between the game then and the game now?
Well, I don't know. I think that Probably the biggest difference I can see is that the majority of these players today are very fast, uh, and I guess I might have been a little bit too slow to play in this league today. I don't know for sure, but I think that that's the biggest difference I can see. Uh, we had defensive line like the fearsome foursome,
Oh,
Deacon
yes.
Jones, or Lundy, David, and all those guys, and they put the pressure on the quarterbacks. I mean, serious pressure, and uh, but they made it a lot easier on us defensive backs and linebackers than it would be if the quarterback has got all day to throw a ball.
You once said of Deacon Jones, quote, he was a terror. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, Deacon is he's what was he, about 6'6" or 6'7", something like that. He weighed about 200 and oh, 250, close to it, and he could run a 100-yard dash in 10 flat. That's how fearsome that feller was,
That's amazing.
and it is amazing. And he loved to trap the quarterback on the backside. He thought that was the greatest thing in the world, and it was. And but we had Rosie Greer, that Lamar Lundy, and Deacon Jones, and Merlin Olsen. Those were the fearsome foursome, and it was a tremendous pleasure for me to play behind those four players.
12 years with the Rams. As I mentioned, 46 intercepted passes, 18 fumble recoveries, 10 blocked kicks. All of those are still franchise records. Tell me, what's your relationship with the Rams now?
Well, of course, it's a complete different organization now. That different people that are there now that were not there back in the days of Dan Reeves and those guys, and
Sure.
Elroy Hirsch and people like that. But and really, to be real honest with you, I'm not. I don't follow the ball game, and follow the game as much as I probably should. But that's a part of my life that is gone, and it's nice to be able to reminisce like with you.
Sure.
And but time goes on, life goes on, and that's one of the reasons that I'm having my family with me the last week or so, and we try to get together as much as we possibly can and talk about old times.
Well, it's fun to reminisce on my end too, because I'm such a fan of yours and I'm such a fan of the game. But you did mention something that I wanted to touch on there: the post NFL career. You moved to Dallas. You got involved in real estate, and of course, that's what we do here. But then you mentioned your family. Just talk about the transition from I'm in the NFL, I'm in the bright lights of Los Angeles, and now I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. What's the biggest transition like? And talk about the rewarding elements of the family life now.
Well, I think the immediate kids that we have, like Vicky sitting here and David sitting here, watching all this, and I think that I'm proud of them, and I'm also proud of their siblings. It's just it's always a constant pleasure to have us visit them in Arkansas and in places, and I know that it's, or at least I think I know that they are quite happy to be here with us on this week. Uh, of Things that we've got, all kinds of things that we've done this week.
Well, just getting the opportunity to know your son Dave and having met some of the family, I can say this, that that family unit seems to be so important to you folks, and I appreciate that. It's always good to talk to people who maintain that family unit. Is there something that you'd like for the folks in Russellville to know while we have you here?
Well, I would like to actually say thank you for following me and letting me know what I should be doing or whatever. And it's just a pleasure to be around uh, people in Russellville, Arkansas.
Well, the next time you're down, we'd love for you to come by the studio. I'll buy barbecue. I'll buy Old South, whatever you want. It's on me if the next time you get down here to Cyclone Country, sir.
Well, you have got it. We will do that, and especially go to the Old South.
Well, that's my favorite place, and I know that it'll be my treat and it'll be my honor, Mr. Meador. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us here, and thank you for representing our community so well.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck to everyone there in the Russellville area.
All right, that's Eddie Meador. He's a former Cyclone, former Wonder Boys great, former LA Rams great. It's been a privilege to have him on the show. More Spotlight right after this. Folks, Drew Brent here for Alathus. And you know, the conversation almost always starts the same way. I'm looking at buying or selling my house, and I don't know where to start. Is there a resource that I can go to that can help point me in the right direction? Well, luckily there is. It's www.russellvilleliving.com. That's the home of Alathus Realty, and it can be your one-stop shop for all information regarding buying or selling your home. So log on now. It's www.russellvilleliving.com. That's www.russellvilleliving.com. Finally today, it's time to put the spotlight on a man who has done so much for our community. If you've been around car shows or any of the motorcycle events here in the River Valley, then you've probably heard of Ron Peters. Ron Peters had the classic Harley bravado, always around the cool the cool cars, the cool motorcycles. Always had some kind of cool toy that you always really aspired to. But behind all the motorcycle and Harley Davidson bravado was a man with a kind soul and a kind heart. He was the head of the River Valley Toy Run for the past several years, and his idea was simply this: make sure that children who did not have a toy for Christmas would have one. His charitable giving is responsible for so many children eating meals that maybe they wouldn't have had in this area, and he was always quick to give anybody anything that they needed. You may not have known about all of his charitable donations because he didn't really publicize it. He wasn't that kind of guy. Loved motorcycles, loved his friends, and he loved this community. Ron Peters lost his battle, long and courageous battle with cancer over the weekend. And we have to put a spotlight on the people like Ron, the people who give to their community selflessly, without thinking, just saying yes, trying to make sure that everyone was taken care of. It's a little personal to me. He was very, very close to my mother-in-law, to my wife, and to my daughter. The things that he did for my family cannot be measured. They are innumerable, long-lasting, impactful, and they will never be forgotten. When I created the show back in March, it was my intent to put the spotlight on people in this community who do immeasurably good work, and maybe you've never heard of them. I know you've heard of Ron Peters, and maybe even you haven't. Your life's been touched by him. Whether it was Harley Davidson's, whether it was the cool shows, whether it was the cool cars, or whether it was the toy run, you knew of his impact. I don't want to be disingenuous and come across that we were close friends. It was only in the last year that we really got to have any kind of meaningful conversations. He was a great friend to our family and a good man. Today, I want to give the spotlight to Ron Peters. And the irony in that is that while he deserves it, he's the kind of man that would never have wanted it. This is the kind of man who deserves the attention that he gets. We are going to miss Ron Peters in this community. He left a Harley-sized hole in our family's heart and in this community. And I'm certain that if there are car shows in heaven, he'll be running them when we all get there. I expect to see a cool Harley on the streets of gold. To Ron Peters, thank you and Godspeed. That's our show for this Monday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.